The rain hammered against the hospital windows like angry fists, and Ethan Rodriguez sat in the pediatric waiting room, his expensive suit soaked through from his dash from the parking garage. He wasn't supposed to be here. His business meeting had been cancelled when his associate's daughter was rushed to the emergency room, and somehow in all the chaos, he'd ended up in this brightly lit room filled with worried parents and the sound of children's voices echoing down the hallway. At 35, Ethan had built his software company from nothing, turning it into a multi-million-dollar empire. He was used to boardrooms and five-star restaurants, not plastic chairs and the smell of disinfectant. His fingers drummed impatiently on his knee as he checked his phone for the 100th time. The meeting could be rescheduled, deals could wait, but sitting here felt like wasting precious time. That's when he noticed her. A small figure in a hospital gown was making her way slowly down the corridor, one tiny hand trailing along the wall for support. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old, with curly hair tied back with a bright yellow ribbon and skin that glowed despite her obvious illness. Her steps were careful and measured, and Ethan could see the slight flush on her cheeks that suggested fever. The little girl stopped directly in front of him, studying his face with the serious expression that only children can manage. Her eyes were bright and intelligent, holding none of the fear he expected to see in a sick child. "You look sad," she said simply, tilting her head to one side. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. "I'm not sad. I'm just waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For my friend to finish talking to the doctors about his daughter." She nodded solemnly as if this made perfect sense. "Are you rich?" The question was so direct that Ethan almost smiled despite himself. "Why do you ask?" "Your clothes look expensive, and you have that watch that sparkles." She pointed at his Rolex with a small finger. "Rich people usually don't spend time in hospitals unless they have to." There was no judgment in her voice, just curiosity. Ethan found himself answering honestly. "Yes, I suppose I am." "That's good," she said, brightening. "Rich people can help more." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the little girl moved closer, her hospital gown rustling softly. She looked up at him with those serious eyes again. "If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret," she said. "What kind of secret?" "The best kind. About love and being sick and why people don't really get abandoned if they know where to look." Ethan stared at her, this tiny philosopher in a hospital gown. There was something about her presence that made the busy hospital seem to fade into the background. "Where do you need to go?" "Third floor. My mama works there and I want to see her. But I get tired walking and my fever makes me dizzy." She held out her small hand trustingly. "Will you help me?" Every instinct told Ethan to find a nurse, to follow proper procedures, to not get involved. But something in the child's eyes stopped him. There was wisdom there that seemed far older than her years, and a trust that was both humbling and terrifying. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sophia." "What's yours?" "Ethan." "That's a nice name. It sounds strong." She smiled and it transformed her entire face. "So will you help me, Ethan?" "I promise the secret is worth it." Ethan looked around the waiting room. His friend was still nowhere to be seen, probably dealing with insurance paperwork and medical forms. The rain continued its assault on the windows, and the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in harsh white light. He thought about his empty penthouse apartment, his calendar full of meetings with people who only cared about his money, his life that suddenly seemed very small despite its material success. "Okay," he heard himself saying. "I'll help you." Sophia's face lit up with pure joy. "Really? You'll accept my offer?" "Yes, I accept." "Good. Thank you." She stepped closer, raising her arms. "I'm not very heavy and I won't mess up your fancy clothes." Ethan bent down and carefully lifted the little girl, surprised by how light she was. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and rested her head against his shoulder, and he could feel the warmth of her fever through her hospital gown. "The elevator is broken," she informed him matter-of-factly. "That's why we have to use the stairs. But stairs are better anyway because you can talk more." As they made their way toward the stairwell, Ethan caught sight of their reflection in the glass doors. He looked like exactly what he was, a wealthy businessman in an expensive suit carrying a sick child in a hospital gown. It should have looked strange, maybe even wrong, but somehow it felt right. "Are you ready for your secret?" Sophia asked softly as they reached the first step. "I thought you said I had to carry you all the way up first." "I changed my mind." "You already helped me, so I'll start telling you now." She paused, thinking carefully. "The first part is that being sick isn't the worst thing that can happen to you." Ethan started climbing, his expensive leather shoes clicking on the concrete steps. "What is the worst thing?" "Being lonely when you're sick. Or being lonely when you're healthy actually. Her voice was thoughtful. But the secret is that you don't have to be lonely if you know how to find love. And how do you find love? You share it first. Even if you don't think you have any to give. She lifted her head to look at him. Like you're doing right now. They climbed in silence for a moment, and Ethan found himself thinking about her words. When was the last time he had shared anything that wasn't related to business? When had he last done something without expecting a return on investment? Sophia, he said as they reached the second-floor landing, how long have you been sick? Just today. I got a fever at school and they called my mama at work. She had to leave early, which means she won't get paid for the full day. There was worry in her small voice. We need the money. Where's your father? I don't have one. It's just me and mama. But that's okay because we have each other and we have love, and love grows when you share it. She said this with the certainty that only a child could have. That's another part of the secret. As they continued climbing, Ethan realized that this little girl was teaching him things that no business school had ever covered. Her fever made her warm against his chest, but her spirit seemed to radiate something even warmer. Almost there, he said as they approached the third floor. Thank you for helping me, Sophia said. Most people would have told me to wait for a nurse. Why didn't you ask a nurse? I did. They're all busy with sicker kids. And besides, she smiled, I think you needed to help me as much as I needed help. That's how love works, it helps everyone. As they reached the third-floor door, Ethan realized that something had shifted inside him during the short climb. The hospital didn't feel as sterile, the fluorescent lights didn't seem as harsh, and the weight of the small child in his arms felt like the first real thing he'd experienced in years. Ready to meet my mama? Sophia asked. Ready, Ethan replied, and for the first time in a long while, he truly meant it. The third floor was bustling with activity despite the late hour. Nurses moved efficiently between rooms, their soft-soled shoes making whisper-quiet sounds on the polished linoleum. The lighting here was softer than in the waiting room below, designed to be gentle on patients who needed rest. Sophia directed Ethan down a long corridor lined with rooms where children slept under colorful blankets. My mama cleans these floors every night, Sophia explained, her voice full of pride. She makes sure everything is perfect for the kids who are really sick. She says a clean place helps people heal faster. They passed a room where a young boy was sleeping, his parents sitting in chairs beside his bed. The mother looked up as they walked by, and Ethan saw the same worry in her eyes that he'd noticed in every parent's face in the waiting room. It made him hold Sophia a little closer. There she is, Sophia whispered excitedly, pointing toward the end of the hallway. A woman was mopping the floor near the nurse's station, her movements steady and practiced. She was young, maybe late 20s, with the same warm brown skin and intelligent eyes as her daughter. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun under a cleaning cap, and she wore a simple uniform with Isabella Martinez embroidered on the name tag. Even from a distance, Ethan could see the exhaustion in her posture. Her shoulders sagged slightly, and she paused occasionally to press her hand to her lower back. But when she looked up and saw them approaching, her entire face transformed with relief and love. Sophia. Baby, what are you doing up here? Isabella dropped her mop and hurried toward them, her eyes taking in the sight of her daughter in a stranger's arms with concern and confusion. Mama, this is Ethan. He helped me come find you because I missed you and wanted to tell you my fever feels better. Sophia reached out to touch her mother's face. Don't worry, he's nice. He has a kind face even when he tries to look serious. Isabella looked at Ethan uncertainly. He was clearly wealthy, clearly out of place in a hospital corridor at this hour. Her protective instincts were warring with gratitude for his help. Thank you for bringing her up here, Isabella said carefully. But sir, you really didn't need to. I could have come down during my break. It was no trouble, Ethan replied, gently setting Sophia down. The little girl immediately wrapped her arms around her mother's waist. Mama, I told him about the secret. About love growing when you share it. Sophia looked up at both adults. He carried me all the way up 3 flights of stairs. Sophia, you can't just ask strangers for favors, Isabella said gently, though Ethan could hear the relief in her voice that her daughter was feeling better. But he's not a stranger anymore. He's Ethan and he helped me when I needed it. That's what people do when they care about each other. Sophia took her mother's hand and then reached for Ethan's, connecting the 3 of them. See? We're already friends. Isabella looked at Ethan over her daughter's head, and he saw something shift in her expression. Perhaps it was the way he had naturally adjusted his expensive suit jacket around Sophia's shoulders, or the gentle way he spoke to her daughter, but the wariness was fading. I should get back to work, Isabella said softly. My supervisor doesn't like interruptions. Actually, Sophia said, tugging on both their hands, I think Ethan wants to learn more about the secret. And maybe you could take a short break? Just to make sure my fever is really gone. Isabella hesitated, clearly torn between her responsibilities and her daughter's needs. Ethan watched the internal struggle play out on her face and made a decision. What if I spoke to your supervisor? He offered. Explained that there was a medical situation with your daughter? Oh no sir, that's not necessary, Isabella said quickly. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Ethan found himself smiling at Sophia, who was nodding encouragingly. Besides, Sophia promised me a complete lesson about her secret, and I think that might take a few minutes. Please, Mama? Sophia's eyes were bright with hope. It's important. Love is always important. Isabella looked at her daughter, then at Ethan, and something in her expression softened. Okay. Just for a few minutes. There's a family room down the hall where we can sit. As they walked to the small room filled with comfortable chairs and children's books, Sophia kept up a steady stream of chatter about the hospital, her fever, and how much better she felt now that she was with both her mama and her new friend Ethan. The family room was painted in cheerful colors, with cartoon characters on the walls and toys scattered on low tables. Isabella settled into a chair and pulled Sophia onto her lap, automatically feeling her forehead with the back of her hand. Your fever is down, she said with relief. That's good, baby. I told you it was getting better. Sometimes you just need the right person to help you. Sophia looked at Ethan, who was sitting somewhat awkwardly in a child-sized chair. Now, where was I with the secret? You were explaining about love growing when you share it, Ethan said, surprised at how naturally he fell into the conversation. Right. So the thing about being sick is that it makes you need people more, but it also makes you see how much people care about you. Sophia snuggled against her mother. Like how Mama left work early today even though we need the money, because taking care of me was more important. Isabella's cheek flushed slightly. Sophia, we don't need to talk about money with? It's okay, Mama. Ethan understands about money. He has lots of it, but I think he might be learning that having money and having love aren't the same thing. Sophia looked at Ethan seriously. Are you learning that? Ethan was quiet for a moment, thinking about his empty apartment, his business relationships that never went deeper than profit margins, his days filled with activity but somehow lacking in meaning. Yes, he said finally. I think I am. Good. Because the next part of the secret is that love doesn't cost anything, but it's worth more than all the money in the world. Sophia reached out and took Ethan's hand again. And when you give love away, you don't lose it. You get more. How do you know all this? Ethan asked, genuinely curious. You're only 4. Being sick makes you think about important things. And watching Mama work so hard to take care of me makes you understand what real love looks like. Sophia smiled at her mother. Plus, the nurses here are really smart and they talk to me about feelings and stuff. Isabella smoothed her daughter's hair. The child life specialists have been wonderful with her. They help kids understand their emotions and cope with being in the hospital. But mostly, Sophia continued, I learned it from Mama. She shows me every day that love means taking care of people even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when you don't have very much to give. Ethan looked at Isabella, who was clearly uncomfortable with the praise but glowing with pride in her daughter. He saw the worn spots on her uniform, the calluses on her hands from hard work, the love that radiated from every gesture as she held her child. Your daughter is very wise, he told Isabella. She is. Sometimes I think she's the one teaching me. Isabella kissed the top of Sophia's head. But I should really get back to work now. Wait, Sophia said. There's more to the secret and Ethan needs to hear it all. Right, Ethan? Ethan found himself nodding. Right. I need to hear it all. And for the first time in years he meant something completely. As Isabella returned to her cleaning duties, she allowed Sophia to stay in the family room with Ethan, but only after extracting a promise that they wouldn't leave the floor and that Sophia would rest. The little girl had curled up in the large chair with a hospital blanket, but her eyes remained bright and alert as she continued her lessons. The next part of the secret is about paying attention, Sophia said, tucking the blanket under her chin. Most grown-ups are always looking at their phones or thinking about work or worrying about money. But when you're sick, you have to slow down and notice things. Ethan glanced at his phone, which he'd been checking obsessively all evening. Sophia noticed and smiled. See? You just did it. But it's okay, it takes practice to stop. She pointed toward the window where the rain was still falling steadily. Like right now, can you hear the rain? Really hear it? Ethan listened. Beyond the hospital sounds the beeping of machines, the soft conversations of staff, the hum of ventilation systems. He could indeed hear the rain pattering against the windows in a steady rhythm. It sounds peaceful, he said, surprised. It is peaceful. Rain is like love. It falls on everyone, whether they're rich or poor, sick or healthy. And it makes everything grow. Sophia shifted in her chair, getting more comfortable. When I got sick today, I was scared at first. But then I started noticing things. What kind of things? Like how the school nurse held my hand when she took my temperature. And how the taxi driver turned down his music when Mama told him I wasn't feeling well. And how the lady at the hospital desk gave me a sticker even though I didn't ask for one. Sophia pulled a small rainbow sticker from her hospital gown pocket. See? Love is everywhere if you look for it. Through the family room's glass door, Ethan could see Isabella working methodically down the hallway. She paused at each room, making sure not to disturb sleeping children, adjusting her movements to be as quiet as possible. Other staff members nodded to her respectfully as they passed, and he saw her exchange a few quiet words with a nurse about something. Your mama works very hard, Ethan observed. She does. 3 jobs actually. She cleans here at night, she works at a grocery store during the day, and sometimes she babysits for our neighbor on weekends. Sophia's voice was matter-of-fact, not complaining, just explaining. But she always has time for me. That's another part of the secret. When you really love someone, you make time. Don't you wish she didn't have to work so much? Sometimes. But Mama says work is good because it helps us take care of each other, and it helps other people too. Like how her cleaning keeps the hospital safe for sick kids, and her work at the grocery store helps families get food. Sophia smiled. She says every job matters if you do it with love. A nurse walked by the family room and peeked in, clearly checking on them. Sophia waved cheerfully. Hi, Miss Jennifer. My fever is much better. The nurse, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, stepped into the room. I'm so glad to hear that, sweetie. And who's your friend? This is Ethan. He carried me upstairs to see Mama, and now I'm teaching him about love and secrets. Sophia introduced them as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Jennifer looked at Ethan with the practiced assessment of someone who'd worked with children for years. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her, because her expression remained warm. That was very kind of you, she told Ethan. Sophia's been worried about her mama all evening. Has she been a patient here long? Ethan asked. Oh, Sophia's not a patient. Her mama brings her to work sometimes when school's out or when she's not feeling well and can't go to the babysitter. Jennifer's voice was gentle, understanding. Isabella is one of our best employees. She never misses a shift, and she does beautiful work. We don't mind having Sophia here when she needs to be. This information hit Ethan unexpectedly hard. Isabella was so dedicated to her job that she brought her sick daughter to work rather than miss a shift. The financial pressure must be enormous. Miss Jennifer, Sophia said, do you want to hear about my secret too? What secret is that, honey? About how love grows when you share it and how being sick isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. Jennifer's eyes softened. You know what? You're absolutely right about that. I see it every day here, families taking care of each other, strangers helping strangers, love making people stronger even when their bodies are weak. See, Ethan? Miss Jennifer knows the secret too. Lots of people do, but sometimes they forget. Sophia looked pleased. That's why it's important to remind each other. Jennifer checked her watch. I need to finish my rounds, but Sophia, you make sure to get some rest, okay? And sir, she looked at Ethan, thank you for being so kind to one of our special girls. After the nurse left, Sophia was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she looked at Ethan with those serious eyes again. Can I tell you something that might make you sad? What is it? Sometimes I wish I had a daddy. Not because Mama isn't enough, she's the best mama in the whole world. But because I see other kids with daddies, and they have someone to carry them and teach them things and love them in a different way. Sophia's voice was wistful but not bitter. But then I remember that love comes in all different shapes, and maybe the universe sends people to help when you need them most. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Is that what you think happened today? The universe sent someone to help? Maybe. Or maybe you needed help too and the universe sent me to you. She smiled. That's the best part of the secret. Love helps everyone at the same time. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Isabella work through the glass door. She moved with quiet efficiency, but Ethan could see the care in every action. When she cleaned around a sleeping child's room, she was extra gentle. When she passed tired parents in the hallway, she offered encouraging smiles. Ethan, Sophia said softly, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have a family? Like a wife and kids? No, I don't. Are you lonely? The question was asked with such innocence, such genuine concern, that Ethan found himself answering honestly. Sometimes. Most of the time, actually. That's what I thought. You have that look that mama gets sometimes when she thinks I'm not watching. Like you're missing something important. Sophia pulled her blanket closer. But the good news is that loneliness is fixable. Not like some sicknesses. How do you fix loneliness? You start sharing love, even tiny bits of it. Like helping a little girl get upstairs to see her mama. And then love starts growing, and pretty soon you're not lonely anymore because you're connected to people. She yawned, her fever and the late hour finally catching up with her. That's the most important part of the secret. Ethan watched this remarkable child fight off sleep, determined to complete her lesson. In his business world, people made deals for profit, formed partnerships for advantage, built relationships for networking. But here was a 4-year-old teaching him about love with no agenda other than sharing something precious she'd discovered. Sophia, can I ask you something now? Why did you decide to share your secret with me? She opened her eyes and looked at him seriously. Because you had sad eyes but a good face. And because when I asked for help, you said yes without asking for anything back. That's how I knew you had love inside you, you just forgot how to use it. As Sophia finally drifted off to sleep in the chair, Ethan sat quietly thinking about everything she'd told him. Through the glass door, he could see Isabella finishing her work for the evening, checking each room one final time to make sure everything was perfect for the patients and families who would need comfort in the morning. For the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Isabella appeared in the doorway of the family room, moving quietly so as not to wake Sophia, who had fallen into a peaceful sleep in the large chair. The little girl's fever seemed to have broken completely, leaving her looking more like a normal sleeping child than a patient. I'm finished with my shift, Isabella whispered to Ethan. Thank you so much for staying with her. I hope she didn't talk your ear off. Actually, she was teaching me, Ethan replied softly, rising from his chair. About love and secrets and how to notice things. Isabella smiled, though he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. It was well past midnight now, and she'd been working since early morning at the grocery store before rushing to the hospital with Sophia. She's always been wise beyond her years. Sometimes I think she's the one taking care of me instead of the other way around. Isabella gently touched her daughter's forehead, confirming that the fever was gone. Sophia, baby, it's time to go home. Sophia stirred, blinking sleepily. When she saw both adults standing over her, she smiled. Did I finish telling you the secret? She asked Ethan. I think you told me the most important parts. About love growing when you share it, and about paying attention, and about how being lonely is fixable. Oh good. But there's still one more part. Sophia sat up, suddenly more alert. The part about accepting help. Isabella began gathering their few belongings: Sophia's school backpack, a jacket, the rainbow sticker that had somehow become precious. Honey, I think Ethan has helped us enough for one evening. But Mama, this is the most important part of the secret. You have to let him help us more because that's how love grows. Sophia looked between her mother and Ethan with earnest eyes. Right, Ethan? You want to help us more, don't you? Ethan felt something shift inside him, a certainty he hadn't experienced in years. Yes, I do want to help more. Isabella immediately shook her head. Sir, you've already been so kind, but we can't accept charity. We take care of ourselves. It's not charity, Sophia said firmly. It's love growing. There's a big difference. Sweetheart, it's complicated, Isabella began, but Sophia interrupted her. No, it's not complicated at all. When someone offers to help and you say no, you stop love from growing. But when you say yes with gratitude, love gets bigger for everyone. She stood up on the chair so she could be at eye level with both adults. That's the secret part that most grown-ups don't understand. Ethan looked at Isabella, who was clearly struggling between pride and need, between independence and her daughter's wisdom. He thought about his empty apartment, his meaningless meetings, his bank account that grew larger while his heart grew smaller. What if helping you helps me too? He asked gently. What if Sophia is right, and this is about love growing for everyone? How could helping us possibly help you? Isabella's voice was skeptical but not unkind. Sophia clapped her hands together softly. Because Ethan is lonely, Mama. He told me so. And lonely people need to be part of families, even if they're not regular families. Especially if they're not regular families. Sophia Martinez, you can't just invite strangers to be part of our family, Isabella said, though her tone was more amused than angry. Why not? If they're good people who need love and have love to give back. Sophia looked at Ethan. You do have love to give back, don't you? I'm starting to think I do, Ethan admitted. I just haven't known how to share it. Isabella was quiet for a long moment, studying Ethan's face. Whatever she saw there seemed to reassure her because her expression softened. What exactly are you offering? She asked carefully. I don't know yet. Whatever you need. Whatever would help. Ethan realized he meant it completely. Maybe we could start with dinner tomorrow? After Sophia's feeling completely better? Can we, Mama? Please? Sophia bounced slightly on the chair. I want to teach Ethan more about the secret, and I want to show him my drawings, and I want him to meet Mrs. Rodriguez next door who sometimes babysits me. Isabella looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at Ethan's sincere expression. One dinner. To say thank you for your kindness tonight. Yes. Sophia cheered quietly, mindful of the sleeping patients nearby. This is exactly how love grows. You start with carrying someone upstairs, then you learn about secrets, then you have dinner together. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Ethan realized that everything in his life was about to change. He'd entered this building as a wealthy businessman killing time during a storm. He was leaving as someone who'd been invited into a family, someone who had a purpose beyond profit margins and board meetings. Ethan, Sophia said as Isabella gathered her into her arms, thank you for accepting my offer to share the secret. Thank you for teaching me, he replied. I think I needed to learn it. Everyone needs to learn it. But most people are too busy or too scared to listen. She rested her head against her mother's shoulder, but kept her eyes on Ethan. You're not too busy or too scared anymore, are you? No, Ethan said, surprising himself with his certainty. I'm not too busy or too scared anymore. As they walked through the hospital corridors toward the exit, Ethan understood that Sophia's secret wasn't really a secret at all. It was truth that most people forgot or ignored. That love grows when shared, that accepting help creates connection, that loneliness is healed by caring for others. The storm outside was beginning to calm, and through the hospital's glass doors, Ethan could see the first hints of dawn touching the sky. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in years, he was genuinely excited to see what it would bring. The next evening, Ethan stood outside a modest apartment building in a quiet neighborhood, holding a bag of groceries and feeling more nervous than he had before any business presentation. He'd spent the day thinking about Sophia's words, about love growing when shared, and about the family that had somehow adopted him in the space of a few hours. The building was old but well maintained, with small balconies decorated with potted plants and wind chimes. Children's bikes were chained to the front rail, and the sound of multiple languages drifted from open windows. It felt alive in a way his sterile downtown high-rise never had. Sophia met him at the front door, her fever completely gone and her energy restored. She wore a bright yellow dress and had her hair in 2 ponytails tied with rainbow ribbons. Ethan, you came. I told Mama you would. She grabbed his free hand and began pulling him toward the stairs. We live on the 2nd floor and I have so many things to show you. Sophia, let the man breathe, Isabella called from above, but Ethan could hear the laughter in her voice. Their apartment was small but filled with warmth. The living room doubled as Sophia's play area, with books and art supplies organized in colorful bins. The walls were covered with the little girl's artwork, rainbows and flowers and stick figure families under smiling suns. Everything was clean and carefully arranged, making the most of limited space. I brought some groceries, Ethan said, offering the bag to Isabella. I wasn't sure what you needed. Isabella peeked into the bag and her eyes widened slightly. He'd filled it with fresh fruits and vegetables, good bread, milk, and ingredients for the kind of nutritious meals a child needed. It represented more food than they usually bought in 2 weeks. This is too much, she began, but Sophia interrupted. Mama, remember what I taught you about accepting help with gratitude? This is exactly what I was talking about. The 4-year-old looked at both adults with exasperated patience. You say, thank you, Ethan, this is very thoughtful, and then love grows bigger. Isabella looked at her daughter, then at Ethan, and took a deep breath. Thank you, Ethan. This is very thoughtful. See? Now love just grew. Sophia clapped her hands. I can actually feel it getting bigger in the room. As Isabella unpacked the groceries, Ethan noticed how carefully she handled each item, as if they were precious gifts. When she found the package of strawberries, she smiled. Sophia loves strawberries, but they're usually too expensive for our budget. Can I have one now, Mama? Please? Sophia's eyes lit up with excitement. After dinner, baby? But yes, you can have strawberries for dessert. Sophia did a little dance of joy, then grabbed Ethan's hand. Come see my room. I want to show you my drawings and my books and my special box. Her bedroom was tiny but magical. The walls were painted a soft lavender, and handmade curtains featuring dancing butterflies hung over the single window. A small bed with a patchwork quilt took up most of the space, along with a bookshelf made from wooden crates and a child-sized desk where art supplies were neatly arranged. Mama made my curtains herself, Sophia said proudly. And she painted the walls this color because I said it reminded me of flowers in the morning. Ethan examined the drawings covering one wall. They were typical 4-year-old art, but full of life and color. Many featured two figures, a tall one with dark hair and a small one with curly hair, always holding hands, always smiling. This one is you and your mama, he observed, pointing to a particularly cheerful drawing. Yes, but look at this one. Sophia pointed to a newer drawing that included 3 figures. I drew this today. That's you carrying me up the stairs. See, you have kind eyes. Ethan stared at the drawing, unexpectedly moved. In Sophia's artwork he looked happy. Not wealthy or important or successful, just happy. I love it, he said honestly. You can have it if you want. Mama says art is meant to be shared. I would like that very much. Sophia carefully removed the drawing from the wall and handed it to him with ceremony. This is so you remember that love grows when you share it. From the kitchen came the sounds of Isabella preparing dinner, the sizzle of onions in a pan, the gentle clatter of dishes, the soft humming of someone content with her work. The apartment filled with the smell of home cooking, something Ethan realized he hadn't experienced since childhood. Do you want to see my special box? Sophia asked, pulling a small wooden jewelry box from under her bed. Inside were her treasures: a smooth stone from a park visit, a pressed flower, a letter from her grandmother, a few coins she'd saved, and the rainbow sticker from the hospital. These are things that remind me of good days, she explained. Mama says everyone should keep reminders of happiness for when they feel sad. That's very wise. Mama is the wisest person I know. She teaches me something new every day. Sophia closed the box carefully. What does your house look like, Ethan? It's different from this. Bigger but not as warm. Do you have pictures on your walls? Ethan thought about his sterile apartment with its expensive but impersonal artwork chosen by a decorator. Not really. Not like yours. That's sad. Pictures make a place feel like home. Maybe I could draw you some more pictures? I would love that. Dinner? Isabella called from the kitchen. The small dining table was set with mismatched plates and glasses, but everything sparkled with cleanliness. Isabella had prepared chicken with rice and vegetables, simple food made special by the care that went into it. Mama, can Ethan sit next to me? Sophia asked, bouncing in her chair. Of course, sweetheart. As they ate, Sophia kept up a steady stream of chatter about her day at school, her friends, her plans for the weekend. Isabella listened with the complete attention that only a devoted parent can give, asking questions and offering gentle guidance. Tell Ethan about Mrs. Rodriguez, Sophia said between bites. Our neighbor, Isabella explained. She watches Sophia sometimes when I have to work extra hours. She's been like a grandmother to us. She makes the best cookies in the world, Sophia added. And she speaks Spanish and English, so she's teaching me words in both languages. Want to hear? Without waiting for an answer, Sophia began counting to 10 in Spanish, her pronunciation careful and proud. That's wonderful, Ethan said. I only speak English. That's okay. I can teach you Spanish words too. The first one you should learn is familia. It means family. Isabella's cheek flushed slightly. Sophia, not everyone wants to learn Spanish. Ethan does, don't you? Because learning someone's language is another way of sharing love. Ethan looked at this remarkable child who seemed to find lessons about love in everything. Yes, I'd like to learn. Familia. Family. Perfect. See, Mama? Love is growing again. After dinner, as Isabella washed dishes and Sophia played with her toys, Ethan found himself thinking about the contrast between this simple evening and his usual routine of takeout meals eaten alone while reviewing business reports. Here, washing dishes was a shared activity. Playtime was family time. Every moment seemed to matter. Ethan, Sophia said, looking up from her coloring book, are you learning the secret? I think so. You're a very good teacher. Good. Because tomorrow I want to show you the park where Mama and I go on Sundays. And maybe we can feed the ducks. Do you like ducks? I've never fed ducks before. Sophia's eyes widened with delighted shock. Never? Oh, we definitely have to fix that. You can't understand the whole secret until you've fed ducks. Isabella emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. Sophia, You can't just plan Ethan's whole weekend for him. He might have other things to do. Ethan realized that for the first time in years, he couldn't think of anything he'd rather do than spend the weekend feeding ducks with a 4-year-old philosopher and her remarkable mother. Actually, he said, I don't have any other plans. I'd love to see the park. Sophia jumped up and hugged him tightly. This is the best secret sharing ever. As the evening wound down and it came time for Ethan to leave, he found himself reluctant to return to his empty apartment. Being here felt like being part of something real, something that mattered. Thank you for dinner, he told Isabella at the door. And thank you for letting me be part of this. Thank you for the groceries and for being so kind to Sophia. She really has taken to you. I've taken to her too. And to you both. Sophia appeared at the door in her pajamas, ready for her goodnight hug. Don't forget about the ducks tomorrow, she reminded him sleepily. I won't forget. And don't forget that love grows when you share it. I won't forget that either. As Ethan drove home through the quiet streets, he carried with him the warmth of family dinner, the sound of a child's laughter, and the growing certainty that his life was changing in the most wonderful way possible. The park was alive with Sunday morning activity when Ethan arrived to meet Isabella and Sophia. Families spread picnic blankets under shade trees, children played on swings and slides, and the small pond in the center sparkled with sunlight. He found them at a bench near the water, Sophia already tearing pieces of bread into duck-friendly sizes. Ethan, you came. Sophia ran to him with a bag of breadcrumbs clutched in her small hands. The ducks are waiting for us. I think they know it's Sunday. Isabella stood up, smoothing her simple sundress. Even in casual clothes, she carried herself with quiet dignity. Good morning. I hope you don't mind that we started without you. Someone was too excited to wait. I don't mind at all. Thank you for inviting me. As they walked to the water's edge, Sophia began her duck feeding tutorial with the seriousness of a professor. You have to throw the bread gently, not too far, and you have to make sure the little ducks get some too, not just the big ones. The ducks came swimming over eagerly, their wake creating gentle ripples across the pond's surface. Sophia demonstrated the proper throwing technique, her face concentrated and pleased when a small duckling managed to grab a piece of bread. See? You have to pay attention to who needs help the most, she explained to Ethan. Just like with people. Ethan followed her instructions, finding unexpected joy in the simple activity. When was the last time he'd done something with no purpose other than bringing happiness to others? When had he last noticed how sunlight danced on water or how a child's laughter could make everything feel lighter? Mama, tell Ethan about when we first started coming here, Sophia said, settling cross-legged on the grass. Isabella sat beside her daughter, smoothing Sophia's hair unconsciously. When Sophia was 2, she was going through a difficult phase, lots of tantrums, trouble sleeping. I was working so much that I felt like I was failing as a mother. One day I was completely overwhelmed, and I brought her here hoping the fresh air might help. And what happened? Ethan asked, sitting down to complete their small circle. She saw the ducks and became completely calm. She stood at the water's edge for an hour just watching them swim and dive. It was the most peaceful I'd seen her in weeks. Isabella's voice was soft with the memory. We started coming every Sunday after that. It became our special time together. It's still our special time, Sophia added. Except now you're here too, which makes it even more special. They spent the morning feeding the ducks, walking the park's winding paths and playing on the playground. Ethan found himself climbing monkey bars for the first time in decades, pushing Sophia on the swings, and rediscovering the simple pleasure of being outside with no agenda other than enjoying the day. During a quiet moment on a bench while Sophia played nearby, Isabella turned to him with a serious expression. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. What made you help us that night? Really? Most people would have found a nurse and walked away. Ethan thought carefully before answering. Honestly? I think it was Sophia's eyes. She looked at me like she could see something I'd forgotten about myself. And when she asked for help, it felt like the first real thing anyone had asked of me in years. Isabella nodded slowly. She has a gift for seeing people clearly. But I have to ask, what do you want from us? People with your kind of money don't usually spend their weekends in public parks with single mothers and their children unless they want something. The question was direct but not accusatory. Isabella was being protective of her daughter while trying to understand his motives. I want to be part of something real, Ethan said honestly. I have a penthouse apartment, expensive cars, restaurants that know my name, but I don't have what you have here. I don't have family. I don't have love that grows when you share it. You could have a family of your own. A man like you could find a wife, have children. I've tried. But every relationship I've had has been about what I could provide financially, not about who I am as a person. The women I've dated have been more interested in my bank account than my heart. He watched Sophia carefully helping a younger child on the slide. Your daughter sees something in me that I'd lost sight of. She makes me want to be better. Isabella was quiet for a moment, processing his words. Being part of our family wouldn't be like your business relationships. We don't have much to offer in return. You have everything to offer. You have love, wisdom, purpose, connection. You have a daughter who teaches profound truths while feeding ducks. You have warmth and laughter and meaning. Ethan met her eyes. I'm the one who doesn't have much to offer in return. That's not true, Sophia said, appearing beside them with grass stains on her dress and joy radiating from her face. You have kindness and strong arms for carrying little girls upstairs and a willingness to learn about love. Plus, you're really good at duck feeding now. How much of our conversation did you hear, young lady? Isabella asked with amusement. Enough to know that you're both being silly. Ethan wants to be part of our family, and we want him to be part of our family, so the only question is when we're going to make it official. Sophia climbed onto the bench between them. Also, I'm hungry and ice cream sounds perfect right now. Isabella laughed, the tension of the serious conversation dissolving. Ice cream before lunch? What kind of mother do you think I am? The best kind. The kind who knows that some days are special enough for ice cream before lunch. Sophia looked at Ethan hopefully. Right, Ethan? This is a special day, isn't it? Looking at this mother and daughter who had welcomed him into their world, who had taught him about love growing when shared, who had given him a purpose beyond profit, Ethan felt his heart expanding with gratitude. Yes, he said. This is definitely a special enough day for ice cream before lunch. As they walked toward the park's ice cream vendor, Sophia skipping between them and holding both their hands, Ethan realized that for the first time in his adult life, he felt genuinely wealthy. Not because of the numbers in his bank account, but because of the love in his heart and the family beside him. Ethan, Sophia said, looking up at him with those wise eyes, are you starting to understand about true wealth? I think I'm beginning to, he replied. Good. Because that's the next part of the secret I haven't told you yet. Real wealth isn't about money, it's about having people who love you no matter what, and having people to love back. As they stood in line for ice cream, other families around them, children laughing and parents chatting, Ethan felt like he was finally part of the world instead of just observing it from the outside. And when Sophia insisted on sharing her strawberry ice cream with him, declaring that sharing made everything taste better, he knew she was absolutely right. Monday morning brought unexpected challenges that would test everything Sophia had taught Ethan about accepting help and letting love grow. Isabella called him early, her voice strained with worry. Ethan, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I didn't know who else to call. What's wrong? Sophia woke up with stomach pain. It might just be something she ate, but the school nurse says I should take her to the doctor. The problem is, I can't afford to miss another day of work so soon after Friday, and I can't afford the doctor visit either. Her voice cracked slightly. I feel like such a failure as a mother. You're not a failure. You're an amazing mother who's in a difficult situation. Ethan was already reaching for his keys. I'm coming over. We'll take her to the doctor together. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. And Sophia taught me that when someone offers help, you accept it with gratitude so love can grow. There was a pause, then a shaky laugh. She really did teach you well. When Ethan arrived at their apartment, he found Sophia curled up on the couch, pale but trying to be brave. She managed a small smile when she saw him. My tummy hurts, but I'm being strong like Mama taught me, she said softly. I know you are. That's why we're going to get you checked out and feeling better. Ethan knelt beside the couch. Is it okay if I carry you to the car? Yes, please. But be gentle because everything feels wobbly. At the pediatric clinic, Ethan watched Isabella navigate the insurance paperwork with practiced efficiency, though he could see her hands shaking slightly as she calculated copays and deductibles. When the receptionist mentioned additional costs for tests, Isabella's face went pale. Excuse me, Ethan said quietly to the receptionist. I'd like to cover all of Miss Martinez's medical expenses today. Sir, you don't need to, Isabella began. I want to, Ethan said firmly. Please let me do this. In the examination room, Dr. Patricia Kim was gentle and thorough with Sophia, who answered questions with her usual seriousness and wisdom. Does this hurt when I press here? A little, but not too much. It's like my tummy is confused about something. Dr. Kim smiled at the description. That's actually a very good way to explain stomach pain. Have you eaten anything different lately? As the examination continued, it became clear that Sophia likely had a mild stomach bug that would resolve with rest and care. Dr. Kim provided detailed instructions for home treatment and when to return if symptoms worsened. The good news is she should be feeling much better in a day or two, Dr. Kim told Isabella. The challenging news is she shouldn't go to school or daycare until she's been fever-free for 24 hours. Isabella's face showed her internal conflict. Staying home with Sophia was necessary for her daughter's health, but missing work would strain their already tight finances. I can stay with her, Ethan offered immediately. Ethan, you have your own work. My work can wait. Sophia is more important. Really? You do that? Sophia perked up from the examination table. You take care of me while I'm sick? Of course I would. That's what family does. Dr. Kim, who had been quietly observing this exchange, smiled. Sophia, you're very lucky to have so many people who love you. I know, Sophia said seriously. Love grows when you share it. That's my secret. Back at the apartment, Ethan found himself in unfamiliar territory. He'd never cared for a sick child before, but Isabella patiently taught him the basics before reluctantly leaving for work. Her medicine is in the kitchen with the schedule written out. She needs to drink lots of fluids and she likes ginger ale for her stomach. If her fever spikes or she seems worse, call me immediately. I will. Don't worry about anything except work. After Isabella left, Sophia settled on the couch with her favorite blanket and looked at Ethan expectantly. So, what do we do all day when someone's sick? He asked. Well, first we read stories. Then we drink tea with honey. Then we watch movies that make us feel better. And we talk about important things because being sick makes you think deeply. What kind of important things? Like how taking care of someone when they're sick is one of the purest ways to show love. And how letting someone take care of you is a gift you give them. Ethan settled into the chair beside the couch. Is that another part of your secret? Lots of people think being taken care of makes them weak, but really it makes love stronger for everyone. Sophia pulled her blanket up to her chin. You're learning that right now. How am I learning that? Because you chose to be here instead of at your office making money. You chose love over profit. That's a big step. As the day progressed, Ethan discovered that caring for Sophia came naturally to him. He brought her medicine and fluids on schedule, read her favorite books in different voices that made her giggle, and held cool washcloths to her forehead when her fever returned briefly. During one of her naps, he found himself studying the family photos on Isabella's dresser. There were pictures of Sophia as a baby, first steps, birthday party celebrated with homemade decorations. In every photo, despite limited resources, there was abundance of joy and love. When Sophia woke up, she found him still looking at the pictures. That's my first birthday, she said, pointing to a photo of herself with cake smeared across her face. Mama made that cake herself, and Mrs. Rodriguez came over to sing happy birthday in Spanish. You look very happy. I was happy. We didn't have much money for presents, but Mama gave me the best gift ever. What was that? She told me that every birthday is a celebration of how much love has grown since the day I was born. She said I made her heart bigger just by existing. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the apartment's temperature. Your mama is very wise. She is. And so are you, even if you're just learning it. Sophia sat up carefully. Can I tell you something that might surprise you? What's that? Taking care of me today is changing you. I can see it in your face. You look softer, happier. Like you're remembering who you really are underneath all that business stuff. Ethan realized she was right. The constant tension he carried in his shoulders had eased. The mental noise of stock prices and meeting schedules had quieted. For the first time in years, he was completely present in a single moment. How can you see all that? You're only 4. Being 4 doesn't mean being stupid. It just means seeing things simply. Sophia patted the couch beside her. Come sit closer. I want to tell you the most important part of the secret. Ethan moved to sit beside her on the couch. The most important part, Sophia said seriously, is that love isn't something you earn or buy or deserve. It's something you choose to give and receive. You chose to give it when you carried me upstairs. You chose to receive it when you accepted our invitation to dinner. And today you're choosing both. And that changes everything? It changes everything. Because once you know how to choose love, you can never be really lonely again. Even when you're by yourself, you carry all the love you've shared with you. As the afternoon wore on, Sophia's symptoms gradually improved. Her appetite returned, her color looked better, and her energy slowly came back. By the time Isabella returned from work, Her daughter was sitting up and coloring while Ethan read aloud from a children's book about friendship. How was she? Isabella asked, exhaustion evident in her voice. She was perfect. Her fever broke around 2 and she's been feeling better ever since. Ethan closed the book and smiled. She taught me more about love in one day than I learned in 35 years. Isabella knelt beside the couch and felt Sophia's forehead. No fever. Good girl, baby. Mama, Ethan took such good care of me. He read me 6 stories and made me special tea and even sang me a lullaby when I was feeling really sick. You sang? Isabella looked at Ethan with amused surprise. Badly. But she seemed to like it anyway. Because it came from your heart, Sophia explained. That's what made it perfect. That evening, as they sat down to a simple dinner together, Ethan realized that everything about his life had shifted. His expensive apartment felt less like home than this small, warm space. His business successes felt less meaningful than Sophia's improvement. His bank account felt less valuable than the trust these 2 people had placed in him. Thank you, Isabella said quietly as they cleaned up after dinner. For today, for the doctor, for everything. I don't know how to repay you. You don't repay love, Sophia said from the living room where she was arranging her toys. You just keep sharing it. That's how it works. Ethan met Isabella's eyes and saw in them the same wonder he felt, amazement at the wisdom of this little girl who saw the world so clearly, and gratitude for the love that was growing between all of them. She's right, he said. You don't repay love. You just keep sharing it. Over the following weeks, Ethan found his entire routine reshaping around Isabella and Sophia. What had started as occasional visits became daily phone calls, weekend adventures, and a growing sense of belonging that surprised him with its intensity. He learned that Isabella worked 3 jobs not out of choice but out of necessity. The grocery store during the day, the hospital at night, and weekend babysitting for neighbors. She was exhausted most of the time but never complained, focusing instead on providing stability for her daughter. I want Sophia to have opportunities one never had, she explained one evening as they walked through the neighborhood after dinner. Sophia ran ahead, chasing fireflies with the abandon of childhood. I want her to go to college, to see the world, to never have to choose between paying rent and buying medicine. She's going to have all of that, Ethan said with quiet certainty. I want to help make sure she does. Isabella stopped walking and looked at him seriously. Ethan, we've known each other for 3 weeks. You can't just decide to change our entire future. Why not? Sophia taught me that love grows when you share it. This is me sharing it. It's too much. Setting up a college fund, offering to pay for things we need, it's too much too fast. Sophia came running back to them, slightly out of breath and glowing with joy. Did you see how many fireflies I caught? 7. And then I let them all go because Mama says beautiful things are meant to be free. That's exactly right, baby, Isabella said, smoothing her daughter's hair. Are you two talking about important grown-up stuff? Sophia asked, noting their serious expressions. We're talking about how much help family members should give each other, Isabella explained carefully. Oh, that's easy. Family members help each other as much as they can, whenever they can, however they can. That's what makes them family. Sophia looked between the 2 adults with patient wisdom. Why are grown-ups always making simple things complicated? That night, after Sophia was asleep, Isabella and Ethan sat on the small balcony of her apartment, sharing a cup of tea and talking quietly. Can I tell you about Sophia's father? Isabella asked suddenly. Ethan had wondered but never asked. Only if you want to. He was charming and handsome and full of big dreams about the future. When I got pregnant, he promised we'd be a family, that he'd take care of us both. Isabella's voice was matter-of-fact, not bitter. He left when Sophia was 6 months old. Said being a father was harder than he'd expected. I'm sorry. I'm not. If he'd stayed, Sophia might have learned that love is conditional, that people leave when things get difficult. Instead, she's learned that real love shows up, even when it's hard. Like you showing up for her every day, working 3 jobs to give her a good life. Like you showing up when she was sick even though you barely knew us. Like you showing up every day since then, not because you have to, but because you want to. Isabella looked at him in the soft light from the apartment. That's the kind of love that lasts. I want it to last, Ethan admitted. This feeling of being part of something important, something real. I've never had that before. What was your childhood like? Ethan was quiet for a moment, thinking. Lonely. My parents were wealthy but distant. I had everything money could buy but very little actual attention or affection. I learned early that success was measured in achievements and acquisitions, not in relationships. That explains a lot about why you connect so strongly with Sophia. She's giving you the kind of unconditional love you missed as a child. And I'm giving her the security and opportunities you want her to have. Maybe that's how families work. Everyone gives what they can, everyone receives what they need. Isabella was quiet for a long moment, considering his words. Maybe it is. The next day brought an unexpected test of their growing bond. Ethan was in a board meeting when his phone rang with Isabella's number. He almost ignored it, but something made him excuse himself to answer. Ethan, I'm so sorry to bother you at work, but there's been an emergency at Sophia's school. His blood ran cold. What kind of emergency? She fell on the playground and hit her head. They think she might have a concussion. They want to take her to the hospital, but they need a parent or guardian to meet them there. I'm on my way. You don't have to. Isabella, I'm on my way. Which hospital? 20 minutes later, Ethan burst through the emergency room doors to find Isabella already there, having left work immediately. Sophia was lying on a hospital bed, awake but subdued, with a small bandage on her forehead. Ethan. She perked up when she saw him. You came. I told the nurse that you'd come because that's what family does. Are you okay, sweetheart? He took her small hand in his, relieved to see her alert and responsive. My head hurts a little, but the doctor says my brain is working perfectly. I can still remember all the important things like how love grows when you share it. Dr. Kim, the same pediatrician who had treated Sophia's stomach bug, emerged from behind the curtain with a reassuring smile. Good news, the CT scan shows no signs of serious injury. She has a mild concussion, which means she'll need to rest for a few days and avoid strenuous activity, but she should make a full recovery. Isabella sagged with relief, and Ethan instinctively put his arm around her shoulders to steady her. However, Dr. Kim continued, I do need to ask about the family situation. Sophia has been telling everyone that Ethan is her daddy, and I want to make sure I have the correct emergency contact information. Isabella and Ethan exchanged glances over Sophia's head. He's not her biological father, Isabella said carefully, but he is family. Very important family, Sophia added firmly. The kind that shows up when you need them. Dr. Kim nodded understandingly. I see this more often than you might think, families that choose each other rather than families defined by biology. What matters is that Sophia feels loved and secure. After they brought Sophia home and settled her on the couch with instructions for monitoring her condition, Isabella pulled Ethan aside. She's been telling people at school that you're her daddy. How do you feel about that? Terrified. Hopeful. Confused. Isabella ran her hands through her hair. What if she gets too attached and you decide this isn't what you want? What if I get too attached and you decide this isn't what you want? Ethan countered gently. From the living room came Sophia's voice, slightly sleepy from her pain medication but still clear. Love isn't scary when it's real. Real love doesn't leave just because things get complicated. They looked at each other and started laughing despite the stress of the day. She's been eavesdropping again, Isabella said. And she's right again, Ethan replied. That evening, as Sophia dozed on the couch between them while they watched a gentle movie, Ethan realized that somewhere in the past few weeks, his life had become exactly what he'd always been looking for without knowing it. Not the empty success of his business achievements, but the full, messy, wonderful reality of loving and being loved in return. When Sophia stirred and looked up at him with sleepy eyes, she smiled. Ethan, do you know what the very best part of the secret is? What's that, sweetheart? The best part is that once you find your real family, everything else just makes sense. Looking at Isabella, who was stroking her daughter's hair with infinite tenderness, and feeling Sophia's small hand trustingly holding his, Ethan knew that she was absolutely right. Everything else finally made sense. A month after Sophia's playground accident, Ethan made a decision that would have seemed impossible just 2 months earlier. He restructured his entire business, promoting his most trusted managers to handle day-to-day operations so he could spend more time with his new family. You're sure about this? His business partner asked during their transition meeting. You've worked 12-hour days for 15 years. I've never seen you take a real vacation. I've never had a reason to before, Ethan replied, thinking about the morning routine he'd grown to love, walking Sophia to school, seeing her face light up when she spotted him at the gate, listening to her chatter about her friends and lessons and dreams. The change wasn't without challenges. Isabella struggled with accepting help, torn between pride and practicality. But Sophia, with her 4-year-old wisdom, continued to guide them both toward understanding. Mama, she said one evening when Isabella was stressing about Ethan paying for her to reduce her work hours, why do you think love came into our lives? What do you mean, baby? I mean, why do you think the universe sent Ethan to carry me upstairs that night? Just for fun? Sophia was sitting at her small table, coloring a picture of their family. Or do you think maybe we were supposed to help each other? Isabella sat down beside her daughter. What do you think? I think Ethan was lonely and sad and we had extra love to share. And we needed someone strong and kind to help us and he had that to give. So the universe made us a family. Sophia held up her drawing 3 figures holding hands under a rainbow. See? Perfect fit. The healing wasn't just about accepting help or offering it. It was about learning to trust that love could be permanent, that people could choose to stay even when life got complicated. This lesson was tested when Sophia came down with a more serious illness, pneumonia that required hospitalization. Isabella was beside herself with worry, and even with insurance, the medical bills were mounting. I should have seen the signs earlier, she whispered to Ethan in the hospital corridor while Sophia slept. Some mother I am. You're an amazing mother. Sometimes kids get sick no matter how well we take care of them. The bills, Ethan. Even with your help, I don't know how we'll manage all these medical expenses. Ethan took her hands gently. Isabella, look at me. We're family now. This isn't your burden alone anymore. This is our burden and we'll handle it together. But it's so much money. Money is just a tool. And right now, the tool we need to make sure Sophia gets the best possible care. He smiled softly. Besides, she taught me that real wealth is about having people who love you no matter what. I'm the wealthiest man in the world. In Sophia's hospital room, despite her illness, she continued to teach them both about love and healing. Being sick isn't fun, she told Ethan one afternoon when her fever had broken and she was feeling more alert, but it shows you how much people care about you. Look how many people love me. She pointed around the room, Isabella sleeping in the chair beside her bed after 3 straight days of barely leaving Sophia's side, Ethan reading quietly in the corner, flowers from Mrs. Rodriguez on the windowsill, get well cards from her classmates covering the walls. I'm surrounded by love, Sophia said with satisfaction. That's better than any medicine. Is that another part of your secret? Ethan asked. Love is the best healing medicine there is. It doesn't cure everything, but it makes everything bearable. She reached for his hand. Are you learning that too? Yes, I'm learning that too. When Sophia was finally discharged after a week in the hospital, they brought her home to an apartment transformed. Mrs. Rodriguez had organized the neighbors to deep clean everything, stock the refrigerator, and decorate with welcome home banners. The outpouring of community support overwhelmed all of them. You see, Sophia said weakly but happily from her position on the couch, surrounded by pillows and blankets. Love really is everywhere when you know how to look for it. That evening, after Sophia was asleep and the neighbors had gone home, Isabella and Ethan sat on the balcony again, both emotionally drained but grateful. I was so scared, Isabella admitted. When her fever spiked to 104, when they said she might need to be transferred to intensive care. I've never been that terrified in my life. I was scared too. I never knew you could love someone so much that their pain becomes your pain. That's parenthood, Isabella said softly. Your heart walking around outside your body. Is that what I am now? A parent? Isabella looked at him, this man who had spent sleepless nights in a hospital chair, who had advocated fiercely with doctors, who had held her hand during the scariest moments while simultaneously being strong for Sophia. Yes, she said simply. That's exactly what you are. The next morning, Sophia woke up feeling significantly better, her appetite returning and her energy slowly coming back. She found Ethan making breakfast in the kitchen, humming softly to himself. You look happy, she observed, climbing onto a chair at the table. I'm happy. You're getting better, your mama got some real sleep last night and we're all together. That's the final part of the secret, Sophia announced, accepting a glass of orange juice with the solemnity of someone sharing great wisdom. There's more? The final part is that healing happens in families. Not just physical healing but heart healing too. She took a sip of juice and smiled. You were broken when I met you, remember? Your heart was lonely and sad. I remember. And Mama was scared about taking care of me all by herself. She was strong but she was tired and worried all the time. I remember that too. But now look at us. You're not lonely anymore and Mama's not scared anymore and I'm not sick anymore. We healed each other just by loving each other. Sophia swung her legs happily. That's the most important secret of all. Love heals everything it touches. As Isabella emerged from the bedroom, looking more rested than she had in days, Ethan understood that Sophia was absolutely right. They had healed each other not through grand gestures or expensive gifts, but through the simple act of choosing to love unconditionally. "Good morning, my favorite people," Isabella said, kissing Sophia's head and squeezing Ethan's shoulder as she passed. "Mama, I just told Ethan the final part of the secret. About how love heals everything." "Did you now?" Isabella smiled. "And what did he say?" Sophia looked at Ethan expectantly. "Well, what do you say?" Ethan looked around the small kitchen, at the family photos on the refrigerator, at the child's artwork covering the walls, at the woman who had welcomed him into her heart and the little girl who had taught him the true meaning of wealth. "I say thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you for sharing your secret with me. Thank you for letting me be part of your family. Thank you for healing my heart." "You're welcome," Sophia said seriously. "But remember, the secret only works if you keep sharing it with other people too." "I will," Ethan promised. "We all will." And as they sat down to breakfast together, sunlight streaming through the windows of their small apartment, each of them knew that they had found something more precious than all the money in the world. They had found each other. 6 months later, Ethan stood in the same hospital corridor where he had first met Sophia, but this time the circumstances were entirely different. He was here for the adoption proceedings, the legal formalization of what had already become true in their hearts. Sophia, now fully recovered and more vibrant than ever, wore her best dress and carried a folder containing letters she'd written to the judge explaining why Ethan should officially become her daddy. "Are you nervous?" she asked him as they waited outside the courtroom. "A little. Are you?" "Nope. I know how this story ends." She smiled with the confidence of someone who understood the universe's plans. "Besides, we're already a family. This is just making it official for the grown-ups who need paperwork." Isabella emerged from a conference with their lawyer, her face glowing with happiness and relief. The process had taken months of home visits, background checks and legal paperwork, but every step had only confirmed what they all knew: they belonged together. "Ready?" she asked, taking Sophia's hand. "Ready," Ethan replied, taking Sophia's other hand. In the courtroom, Judge Maria Santos reviewed their case with the thoroughness that such decisions required. She had presided over many adoptions, but this case was unique: a child who had essentially chosen her own father, a mother who had found a partner through her daughter's wisdom, and a man who had discovered the true meaning of success through love. "Sophia," Judge Santos said gently, "do you understand what adoption means?" "Yes, ma'am. It means that Ethan becomes my daddy officially, not just in our hearts. It means he promises to love me and take care of me forever, even when I'm difficult or sick or when I make mistakes." "And do you want Ethan to adopt you?" "More than anything in the whole world. He already carries me upstairs when I need help, and he knows all my secrets about love, and he makes Mama happy." Sophia stood up straighter. "Plus, I taught him everything important, so he's ready to be a daddy now." Judge Santos smiled, charmed despite her professional demeanor. "And Ethan, do you understand the commitment you're making?" "I understand that I'm promising to love Sophia unconditionally for the rest of my life. I'm promising to put her needs before my own, to support her dreams, to be there for every triumph and every challenge." Ethan's voice was steady and sure. "I'm promising to be the father she deserves." "Isabella, do you believe this adoption is in Sophia's best interests?" "Your Honor, Ethan has already proven himself to be an exceptional father. He's patient, loving, devoted, and completely committed to Sophia's well-being. More than that, he's made our little family complete." Judge Santos reviewed the paperwork one final time, then looked up with a smile. "It is the decision of this court that the adoption of Sofia Martinez by Ethan Rodriguez is approved. Congratulations to your family." The courtroom erupted in quiet celebration as friends and neighbors who had come to support them applauded. Mrs. Rodriguez wiped away tears, Sophia's teacher beamed with pride, and even the court reporter smiled at the obvious joy in the room. But Sophia's reaction was the most precious of all. She threw her arms around Ethan's neck and whispered, "Now you're really my daddy forever and ever." "I was already your daddy forever and ever," he whispered back. "This just makes it official." That evening, they celebrated with a party in their apartment building's community room. The neighbors had decorated with balloons and streamers, Mrs. Rodriguez had made a 3-layer cake, and Sophia's classmates had created a banner that read, "Welcome to the family, Daddy Ethan." As the celebration wound down and guests began to leave, Sophia climbed onto a chair and clapped her hands for attention. "Excuse me, everyone. I have something important to say." The room quieted, everyone eager to hear what wisdom the 6-year-old would share now. "Today is special because my daddy became my daddy officially. But I want everyone to remember the secret I learned when I was sick and scared and needed someone to carry me upstairs. She looked around the room at all the faces, neighbors who had become extended family, friends who had supported them through challenges, medical staff who had cared for her with love. The secret is that love grows when you share it. When you help someone who needs help, when you accept help with gratitude, when you choose to be kind even when it's hard, that's how love grows bigger and stronger. She pointed to Isabella and Ethan, who were standing together with their arms around each other. My mama and daddy found each other because they both knew how to share love. And now we have the most beautiful family in the world, not because we have lots of money or fancy things, but because we choose to love each other every single day. The room was completely silent, moved by the profound truth spoken by someone so young. So remember, Sophia continued with a smile, if you ever meet someone who needs help, even if they're just a little kid asking you to carry them upstairs, say yes. Because you never know, they might have a secret about love that changes your whole life. As the guests applauded and began sharing hugs and goodbyes, Ethan found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them to this moment. 2 years ago, he had been a successful but lonely businessman who measured his worth in profits and possessions. Tonight, he was a father, a husband in all but legal status, and a man who understood that true wealth was measured in love shared and received. Later, after Sophia was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Isabella and Ethan sat on their small balcony under the stars. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't helped her that night? Isabella asked. Sometimes. But then I remember what Sophia taught me: the universe sends people to help each other when they need it most. If it hadn't been that night, it would have been another time, another way. We were meant to find each other. She really did change everything, didn't she? She saved my life, Ethan said simply. I just didn't know I needed saving. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle below them, both thinking about the journey from that rainy hospital night to this perfect moment. From inside the apartment came a small voice. Mama? Daddy? Can I come sit with you for a minute? Sophia appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes but clearly having something important to say. What is it, sweetheart? Isabella asked, making room for her daughter between them. I just wanted to tell you both thank you. For what? For proving that my secret really works. For showing me that when you share love, everyone gets more of it. Sophia snuggled between her parents, safe and content. And for giving me the most perfect family in the universe. As they sat together under the stars, the three of them understanding that they had found something more precious than anything money could buy, Sophia's words echoed in the night air like a prayer of gratitude. Love really did grow when you shared it. And they were living proof that sometimes the most profound wisdom came from the smallest teachers, and the greatest transformations began with the simplest acts of kindness. Their new beginning was really just the continuation of a love story that had started with a sick little girl's request and a lonely man's willingness to help, a story that would continue growing, one shared moment of love at a time.